Sometimes it is necessary to forget all the knowledge acquired at school and university in order to be able to take a fresh look at things that seem to have been known for a long time. Every person probably comes to the point at some point in his life when he realizes that his life seems to be a kind of cycle, and one has to realize in retrospect that one has wasted a lot of life energy on obviously pointless things. At this point, you have the crucial opportunity to throw your previous ways of thinking and looking at things overboard, and try out a different perspective. It is the point where you have the chance to summon up all your courage to face the fact that perhaps some of the seemingly immovable facts you have been assuming are simply not true. That we were either mistaken, or that we have been subjected to a deliberately orchestrated deception. It is one of the hardest steps of all to admit this fact to ourselves. That in our defense, it must be said that we have all been deliberately inculcated over a very long period of time with the idea that stalwart tin soldiers, who stick to their inherited truths to the very end, are more valid than someone who simply throws his convictions overboard in order to break new ground. It takes great courage and also perseverance to set out on the path to find the truth. But every path begins with the first step. Therefore, today let's reflect a little on a collection of paintings from the 18th, early 19th century. Here are some luminous paintings by different artists, which not only belong to the same era, but are also connected in content. Looking at these paintings, the question arises, are there no undestroyed buildings left there in Europe in the 18th–19th centuries? The general explanation of historians and art scholars is it would be a cultural trend, or a trend of the times. Some of these ruins still exist today as restored structures or as obvious new buildings. But most of the buildings have been irreparably destroyed and demolished afterwards. All these paintings are united by the fact that the artists had depicted reality photographically, without thinking about how their descendants would interpret these works. They probably did not expect that those descendants would declare their works as embellished, exaggerated fantasy products. This is what modern encyclopedias and manuals write about ruinist painting.
These works are known for their picturesque fantasy, whose main motifs are parks and real, but mostly imagined imposing ruins, a large number of which were created from sketches during a stay in Italy.
The truth is more likely that the artists simply documented the surrounding world as it was. We see on the pictures that there was probably in the 19th century, thus by historical standards first yesterday, a peasant civilization, which was obviously directed by a small group of people, whose clothes seemed somewhat expensive, and who lived on the ruins of huge megalithic complexes, which they had probably quite obviously not built themselves. And the general explanation that distant ancestors had built everything, but then by a 1,000-year epoch of medieval darkness, all had forgotten to build such marvels, seems to me very far-fetched. One had forgotten obviously also, which original sense and purpose the pyramids had once. Therefore, there was nothing against dismantling these remnants of an exaggerated death cult, and to use their components for more useful purposes. Only strange that on the painting a stele from Egypt is to be seen, which was brought there according to official version only in the 19th century. May I at this point ask the Egyptologists and art scholars a simple question?
How could a painter named Giovanni Paolo Panini depict a made-up pyramid and a Roman stela when he had already died 7 years before the official discovery of the Egyptian pyramids and that stela?
There are pyramids with unusual proportions shown here. The ratio of the base to its height is completely different from all known pyramids, whether Egyptian, American, Chinese or European. They are clearly not burial vaults, and I doubt that there are any cavities in them at all. What were they really used for? What else is striking are the extremely high ceilings and passageways. They are extremely costly and labor-intensive from a construction point of view, and pointless and wasteful from the user's point of view. There could be two possible answers here: either the builders were giants, or such monstrous structures were quite easy for them to build. In summary, we seem to be confronted here with something impossible, with an extent of knowledge which is far superior to that known today. But how does this fact fit into the idea we have learned, that in the course of history the level of knowledge of a society continuously improves? It seems that a large part of this knowledge has now been irretrievably lost. We have remnants of technological processes, but we have forgotten their original essence. Let us now consider the condition of the ruins. There are no traces of bombardment to be seen. The traces of destruction seem to be more of natural origin. Some structures seem to have been partially destroyed by earthquakes. Some still functioning structures stand next to others that show very strong erosion, which testifies to the great age of the structures. The question of their actual age is one of the key issues. The invention of photography at least allows us to track the changes that occur in an object over the last 100 years. This has shown that the wear of rock is about 10 times higher than previously thought. What has been dated to 5 to 7 centuries has an actual age of only 80 to 100 years. It is deceptive that cities made of granite and basalt can stand like new for 1,000 years under the influence of rain, wind and temperature changes. In reality, what the painters fixed at the end of the 18th to the beginning of the 19th century is at most 300 to 500 years old. Another very important question is what material the structures are made of, because not all stone is the same. Travertine, a regional variation of simple limestone, can often be seen here. Therefore, there is much to suggest that these beauties were built only about 100 years before they were picturesquely photographed. There is also much to suggest that much of the ruins were used by local residents as building material for stables and sheds. There are many indications that a huge catastrophe must have occurred around the year 1700. This is not a coincidence. The year 1700 is fundamentally a very mysterious one. Exactly at the transition from the 17th to the 18th century, something global happened on Earth that affected all spheres of life. A technological leap happened. This thrust in development has made itself felt in all spheres of human activity. Among them also in painting, thanks to which we can now reflect on this question here. After all, the emergence of the camera obscura made the emergence of these works possible by being able to fix photographically accurate images. Today's modern calendar was also introduced at that time. Until then it was the year 7208 since the creation of the world. Perhaps these paintings could give us important clues. What really happened in the last centuries? How could we lose access to this advanced knowledge? These are the questions that the images of the ruins whisper to us. And what reason would there be not to trust the truthfulness of a whole leading group of artists?